You like what you see? I'm Damien, and this is my garden. So I've never actually had my own garden. I've had many opportunities to sort of do something, but when I was here, it never felt like my own. It was always my mom's garden. Around 2002, 2003, my mom bought this house. It had a beautiful Japanese maple tree right in the middle here. There was a lot of dirt, and I guess there was a sort of your makeshift garden for a brand new house. My mom chopped that tree down, concreted the whole front yard, focused on the backyard instead. But later on, she decided to rip up the concrete over here, and then had, I guess, some substantial rose bushes and some other random plants. When I moved to Brooklyn, I had one of those little potters that hang on the end of a balcony, and because my roommate sucked and he kind of commandeered the whole living room and was a dirty piece of shit, I never got to experience the balcony and enjoy just at least, 2 plants on a balcony. So now that I'm here, I've been able to embrace and experience a garden. So in 2024, I moved back here, and there was a lot of corners of doom and a lot of chaos to figure out. Kind of got bogged down on just trying to figure out what to do inside. Of course, that led to more neglect, and I've only sort of made myself space in my own room. One day, I was coming home from work, wherever the fuck I was going. I was probably out just trying to figure out my shit. Goddamn mosquitoes! Anyways, I was figuring out my shit, and I walk into the yard, and I just looked around, and I was like, God, it looks like shit out here. So I took it upon myself to unshit the shit yard. So my mom built this a long time ago. It was sort of like a prayer spot set up. There's actually a couple people that come here and still pray, which is kind of sweet because it's sort of in a weird way. It's like in a memory or in honor of my mom, or at least what she established for others. But this right here, I did not plant. My brother planted just some sunflowers in here, and it's actually grown very well. But with my help, because I kept watering it, I've given it fertilizer, and it continues to sprout up. But that was later in the addition. The first thing I actually put in the garden before I even got into the knit and grit were coleus. Coleus is just a shady plant that has fancy colors like this. They look like just in the 4 leaves format like that. But once they start growing, they actually get pretty big and they look pretty awesome. If you want to follow me this way, I'll show you how they actually go. This is how they continue to grow once they sprout even bigger. And because I am very impatient and I couldn't wait for it to get that big, I bought one, and this is how it's eventually supposed to look. This is coleus in a nutshell, mixed with some other stuff, but this is what it should look eventually once it's fully grown. The thing with coleus is it's a beautiful tropical plant, but it only needs indirect sunlight. I planted them in a spot that was heavy sunlight, mostly to get them to sprout, but I'll likely have to replant them because they will get roasted and their leaves will either get kind of sun bleached or just outright burnt, and then they'll die. So one thing you're gonna have to deal with no matter what form of gardening you're doing is a shit ton of weeds that come from everywhere. Half the time you don't know if they're weeds, half the time you don't know if you should pull them, but they usually get mixed in with whatever you're trying to do. So one of the last things I realized recently, which is actually growing the strongest among all the coleus, is this guy right here. You know what this guy is? I have no fucking clue. Maybe I'll figure it out soon. I haven't pulled it yet, but I'm pretty sure it's a weed that just somehow made its way into my coleus potted plant. But that's the thing with gardening. You don't know everything. Clearly I don't know everything, and I'm still figuring out a lot of this shit. Anyways, over this way is some other good shit. This here is depression manifested into focus. Weeds fucking suck, but sometimes they don't. Like this wild violet. Wild violet produces these awesome purple flowers. Unfortunately, then they die off, and then you have this giant little salad-looking thing, which, funny enough, this is actually edible. So if you wanted to, you could chop this down and throw it in your salad. I probably wouldn't. I haven't yet. I'm kind of curious. Maybe I'll eat it eventually, but as of now, I have not. The cool thing is it's something that's growing in your yard, not by choice, and you could actually eat it if you wanted to. And it's a weed. But I have another weed that's just as annoying, but also just as good, and that's mint right here. If you know anything about mint, which some people do, some people don't, mint is awesome when you cook with it. Mint is great in other aspects. But mint is probably one of the most annoying and invasive plants and technically weed out there. On Facebook, people will literally complain about what is the one thing that they shouldn't have planted, and they always mention mint. So mint is bad. If you literally look here, this was not planted by my mom. It's planted in the back, and it has spread all over the yard. It has spread to the front of the yard. It has spread to the tree outside of the yard just because it's that invasive. So this is just wild mint. It smells damn good. This, I believe, is chocolate mint. It might be peppermint. Peppermint, I'm sorry, that's peppermint. And then this guy down here is either chocolate mint or just more peppermint. One thing's for sure, they're good in a mojito. Damn good. So as I said before, this Violet Davis is a weed. And a lot of what is here looks like weeds. You're not wrong. A lot of this is weeds, but amongst it is a bunch of wildflowers. This snowflake guy right there, that's a wildflower. This sort of spanning out guy in the middle there, it's a little low to the ground, wildflower. These guys towering over this corner of weeds, those are wildflowers. Wildflowers are essential because they help bring bees, butterflies, hummingbirds, although they're not very popular in New York, or at least in this area. But those are good to keep them thriving, to prevent the extinction of the world and the ecosystem and death and the end of society as we know it. So this fucking government tree that's casting so much shadow over this whole fucking yard has ruined a lot of my life. Contemplated things that I shouldn't have because of this tree. But I improvise. So I planted some indirect sunlight plants in this garden planter instead. It was gonna be garden veggies, but instead I planted citronella to keep the mosquitoes and other bugs away. I planted caladium, which is a type of elephant ear, and then I planted the impatiens. Thank you, cameraman. So these 3, and eventually probably 4 or 5, plants in this little garden bed are perfect for indirect sunlight because they will thrive with the shade of this monstrosity that's ruining everything in this front garden. But you improvise, that's the thing about gardening. You kind of learn something new, you kind of figure it out, you roll with the punches, and the punches don't look too bad. These plants are pretty fucking gorgeous, so. Sometimes with indirect sunlight, you can still have plants that thrive. These plants right here, as you may notice the sharp edges and prickly thorns, those are roses. I didn't plant those. My mom planted those years and years ago. And they've been through hell and back, like this guy. He's underneath a giant bush. And they're in indirect sunlight once again. A lot of people assume that roses are a complex plant, kind of like an unscheduled pregnancy. But they're simple in the same way that you follow a recipe or you get an abortion. You just gotta take care of it.
No. No.
So this is how you know my obsessions have gone to another level. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So that would be what's called a string of turtles. Thank you for watching episode 1 of my little variety garden show. Hopefully you learned something, and if you didn't, you're a fucking idiot, and that's your own problem. But I'll leave you with some helpful, healthy hacks. Sunscreen, put it on your face, your nose. Don't get cancer, you'll die. Lemongrass, or any other essential oil that fends off bugs. Don't get West Nile, you don't want to die. Fill your jug up with water, you don't want to get dehydration. I had a friend once, died of dehydration after cancer and West Nile. Don't be like them, be like me, live.